Tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari makes a weighty pronouncement as all Federal Executive Council members seeking elective office in 2023 to resign on or before Monday, May 16th. Only the Vice President is exempted. Minister of State for Education Emeka Nwajuba's resignation announced on the floor of the Federal Executive Council. The President commends him for the decision. Appeal Court in Abuja set aside judgments of the Federal High Court in Umuahia, implying that Section 8412 of the Electoral Act 2022 remains valid, and that all political appointees must resign before seeking elective office. An independent National Electoral Commission is set to release regulation for the conduct of the 2023 general elections next week.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's gross domestic product improves further in the third and fourth quarters of 2021, according to latest reports from the National Bureau of Statistics.
On sports news tonight, defending champion Rafa Nadal advances to the third round of the Italian Open with a convincing victory over John Isner.
And from Abuja, 6 soldiers and a policeman have been killed in Tati community located in Takum local government area of Taraba State.
And in international news from London, Ukrainian forces have recaptured towns and cities around Kharkiv as UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson signs security declarations with Finland and Sweden.
It came as a ban for most Nigerians, much more the ministers themselves, as the president today directed that all members of the Federal Executive Council running for elective office must submit their letters of resignation on or before Monday, May 16, 2022. Our State House correspondent Gloria Umezuke reports.
Armed with their memos, the ministers seated in the council chamber have converged for the usual business of the day, unprepared and oblivious of what the president had in store. During the meeting behind closed doors, the 2023 elections undoubtedly was central as the president dropped the big news, as announced by the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed.
My mandate for today is that all members of the Federal Executive Council contesting for elective office must resign their ministerial cabinet appointments on or before Monday, the 16th of May 2022.
But this directive does not include the vice president.
He was not appointed, he was elected, so he remains. But any other member of the Federal Executive Council aspiring either to be president or senator or governor or any elective office must submit a letter of resignation latest by the 16th.
The information minister also declines to comment about the fate of political appointees.
It might affect other, categories of political appointees, but that will be made known. I believe that the Mr. President has the right to appoint, remove, reshuffle, or change any minister.
Those affected are the ministers of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, Niger Delta, Gospel Akpabio, Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, Science, Technology and Innovation, Dr. Obunaya Onu, Minister of State for Education, Emeka Nwajuba, Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, Minister of State for Petroleum, Timipre Silva. Others are Ministers of State for Mines and Steel, Uche Oga, who's running for governorship position in Abia State, the Minister of Women Affairs, Pauline Talon, who has declared her ambition to contest for the senatorial seat in Plateau State.
Thank you.
Yeah. By implication, a good number of ministers who have picked up their expression of interest and nomination forms are expected to unfailingly resign in a matter of days. And most logically, it is expected that the president would reconstitute his cabinet either by reshuffling or appointing, particularly for key ministries like Ministry of Labour and Productivity, still struggling to negotiate with ASU. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Just as the ministers were trying to wrap their heads around the president's directive, one of them, a presidential aspirant and Minister of State for Education, Mr. Emeka Wajoba, resigned his appointment from the Federal Executive Council. His resignation was announced today at Council, but there are reports he actually tendered his resignation about 2 weeks ago. Mr. Wajoba, who is running for president on the platform of the All Progressives Congress, has already picked the expression of interest and nomination forms from the party to contest for the presidency. While the FEC meeting lasted, President Buhari singled out Wajoba for braving the odds to quit to avoid conflict of interest and said he expects other members of the council seeking to be president to resign with immediate effect. In the meantime, the Minister of Labour, Dr. Chris Ngige, says he will need to seek further clarifications on the directive as he would not resign. He says he's not in a hurry to resign his appointment and that he would have to consult with the President and his constituents before tendering his resignation letter. According to him, President Buhari gave a window for those who need clarification to meet with him. The Labour Minister is seeking to be president on the platform of the All Progressives Congress, but is yet to purchase his form for 100 million naira. Two ministers from President Buhari's cabinet have resigned their appointment to concentrate on their political aspirations following the president's directive that all members of the Federal Executive Council running for elective offices resign on or before Monday, May 16, 2022. More are still expected to heed the president's resignation order ahead of the ruling party's convention. In this report, our correspondent Linda Akiwa examines the implication, if any, of the resignation of members of the president's cabinet.
President Buhari on Wednesday gave marching orders to members of the Federal Executive Council who have ambitions to contest for elective offices in the 2023 general elections to resign on or before May 16. This order is reverberating across the country, mostly because of its notes of finality.
My mandate for today.
In quick response, the Minister of State for Education, Emeka Wajoba, who is running for president, has resigned his appointment. This is not the first time government appointees have resigned to concentrate on politics. In 2010, the late Dora Akunyili resigned as Information Minister in the Goodluck Jonathan administration to contest for the Anambra Central Senatorial seat in the National Assembly. President Buhari's directive is in compliance with Section 8412 of the Electoral Act, which requires government appointees to resign if they intend to vote or be voted for at party conventions or congresses. But the resignation of 9 serving ministers in the cabinet may have implications on governance in the country. Some of these ministers oversee critical aspects of the economy currently in crisis. The Minister of Labour, Dr. Chris Ngige, has been leading negotiations to resolve the protracted impasse between university lecturers and the federal government, which has grounded academic activities in government universities.
And submit my application to serve as your next president.
Mr. Rotimi Amechi heads the Transport Ministry overseeing railways, and his ministry is currently at the center of a storm over the abduction of passengers on a Kaduna-bound train by terrorists. However, some Nigerians say the resignation of the ministers will not impact the running of government.
A lot of people as ministers, they come and go, and so if being that they step aside or whichever position they're holding, they step aside, there will be continuity in government. The PAMSECs, everyone is there to continue the activities of government, so it won't affect government in any way.
Before the appointment of ministers, the government of this country was also being run. But the president devised a means of running this with the topmost bureaucrats, like the permanent secretaries in different ministries. And so we do not see this, as a challenge. We verily believe that if any of these ministers resigns as a consequence of the directive from Mr. President, that a government that is desirous of resolving these issues will certainly find competent hands that will fill in the gap and interface with our union and ensure that these issues are resolved.
The Buhari administration has a little more than a year to wrap up governance. In this time left, he has to address the economic and security problems threatening to bring the country to its knees. And this requires the full complement of a team with sound ideas and vitality. Linda Kibe, Channels Television News.
Legal matters now. The Court of Appeal Abuja Division has set aside the judgment of the Federal High Court sitting in Umuahia, which voided the provision of Section 8412 of the Electoral Act 2022. Delivering judgments, the three-member panel headed by Justice Hamad Barka held that the court had no jurisdiction to have entertained the case as the plaintiff, Mr. Nduka Edede, lacked the local standard to file the suit in the first instance. The court asked that Mr. Edede did not establish any cause of action to have warranted him approaching the court on the issue because he did not establish that he was directly affected by the provision.
Justice Evelyn Ayadike of the Federal High Court, Umuahia, Abia State, had on March the 18th this year nullified Section 84 sub 12 of the 2022 Electoral Act, saying it was unconstitutional, invalid, illegal and a violation of the provisions of the Constitution. And today, the Court of Appeal Abuja seems to have not only corroborated that judgment, but added that if it were to decide the case on its merit, the provision is unconstitutional because it is in conflict with Section 42 sub 1A of the 1999 Constitution. The court further explains the controversial clause in the Electoral Act denies a class of Nigerians their right to participate in elections. The clause bars political appointees at all levels from seeking elective public office or voting as delegates in a party primary unless they resign their positions. While signing the amended bill into law in February, President Muhammadu Buhari had urged the Parliament to delete Clause 84 sub 12 of the Act as it breached the rights of political appointees. While referring the appeal against the Federal High Court judgments to the Supreme Court for interpretation, the Appellate Court says it is a constitutional matter which only the Apex Court can resolve. As primary elections draw near, many are focused on the Supreme Court for an interpretation of the controversial clause.
The 96th National Executive Council the National Judicial Council of the NJC has issued policy directions on political and election-related cases to heads of courts in the country. This is part of concerned efforts to eliminate incidents of issuance of conflicting orders and judgments capable of disrupting the ongoing electioneering process. Under the new direction, heads of courts are to henceforth be held responsible for loopholes in their areas of jurisdiction. A statement by the NJC Director of Information, Mr. Soji Oye, indicates the policy direction was formulated at its 98th meeting of 10 and 11th of May 2022 under the chairmanship of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Dr. Justice Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad. The statement also adds that cross-jurisdiction litigation panel, the CJLP, shall be constituted to give directions on appropriate litigation for cross-jurisdiction litigations. Well, the chairman of the body of benches and senior advocate of Nigeria, Wole Olanipekun, has described as unconstitutional a call by senior advocate of Nigeria, Robert Clark, for President Muhammadu Buhari to extend his tenure on account of the nation's security challenges. In a statement, Mr. Olanipekun says no provision in the Constitution supports Mr. Clark's position, noted that the only situation where election can be rescheduled is when the nation is at war with a foreign country as provided in Section 135, subsection 3. He further contends that the current security challenge cannot be equated with war envisaged under Section 135.3 and urged President Buhari to resist every temptation to stay in power beyond the expiration of his tenure. He also wonders why Mr. Clark, who condemned former President Olusegun Obasanjo's bid for third term, will turn around to advise President Buhari to engage in a direct breach of the Constitution. In part two, after the break, like the Senate, the House of Representatives today passed the Electoral Act 2022 amendment to allow statutory delegates to participate and vote. We'll have more in a moment. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. President Muhammadu Buhari makes weighty pronouncement as all Federal Executive Council members seeking elective office in 2023 to resign on or before Monday, May 16th. Only Vice President Oshibajo is exempted. Minister of State for Education Emeka Nwajuba's resignation announced on the floor of the Federal Executive Council. The President commends him for the decision. Appeal Court in Abuja set aside judgments of the Federal High Court in Umuahia, implying that Section 8412 of the Electoral Act 2022 remains valid, that all political appointees cannot vote or be voted for unless they resign. An independent National Electoral Commission is set to release regulation for the conduct of the 2023 general elections next week. The House of Representatives has amended the Electoral Act 2022 to allow statutory delegates, all those elected to participate and vote in the conventions, congresses or meetings of political parties. The bill was passed by the Senate on Tuesday. There was, however, a slightly rowdy session in the Green Chamber as lawmakers rejected another amendment. Meanwhile, the Independent National Electoral Commission says it will finalize the regulations and guidelines for the conduct of the forthcoming elections latest by next week. The chairman of the INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, disclosed this in Abuja during the second quarterly meeting with civil society organizations. Professor Yakubu says the Commission has decided to suspend the online registration for permanent voters' cards in the next 3 weeks to enable online registrants complete their registration physically at the designated centers before the exercise is suspended on June 30.
Beyond the conduct of primaries by political parties, the Commission is required to make regulations and guidelines for the implementation of the provisions of the Electoral Act. These regulations and guidelines, together with the Constitution and the Electoral Act, constitute the electoral legal framework that govern the conduct of elections. I'm glad to report that the Commission will finalize the regulations and guidelines next week, ahead of the conduct of future elections, including the forthcoming Ekiti and Osun governorship elections, as well as the 2023 general election. There are many progressive provisions in the new Electoral Act which require clear understanding to guide implementation. One of such provisions is the electronic transmission of results. At this meeting, we will discuss the implementation of the provisions of Section 60, 62, and 64 of the Electoral Act 2022 regarding the management of election results.
As we earlier reported, the Vice President is not affected by the President's directive as he is an elected officer of the Federal Executive Council. And just this evening, Professor Yemi Oshibajo submitted his presidential nomination and expression of interest forms at the party secretariat. He was represented by Senator Kabiru Igaya, who also led the team that picked his form. In the last weeks, the Vice President has crisscrossed the country, meeting with delegates of the APC, wooing them to cast their votes for him at the party's primary. It's been another busy day at the National Secretariat of the APC as aspirants took advantage of the extension of submission deadline to submit their expression of interest and nomination forms. Some of those who submitted their forms today are Senator Ibikule Amosun, former Governor Bola Tinubu, Pastor Tunde Bakare, the Governor of Ogun State, Dapo Abiodun, among others. Our correspondent Dele Omoyeni reports.
Some aspirants on the platform of the All Progressives Congress thronged the International Conference Center, ICC, with their completed expression of interest and nomination forms. One of the early aspirants who appeared is the pastor of the Citadel Global Community Church, along with supporters, as they made their way straight to the submission hall to hand over their completed forms, and is optimistic about the process instituted by the party.
My chances are as bright as that of any person. I'm eminently qualified, either age or experience or everything that counts in this race.
Moments later, supporters of Senator Ibukula Amusu arrived for the same purpose. He's aiming to clinch the party's presidential ticket, and for his supporters, he stands a great chance. Another group, led by the governor of Lagos State, accompanied by the former secretary to the government of the Federation, Babachir Lawal, are also here to submit the presidential forms of former Lagos State Governor Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. They share their experiences with journalists.
We are Democrats, and we believe that even if there are 1 million contestants on the platform of this party, we'll carry majority of the delegates at the convention. So the more the merrier. They are all welcome.
They are the true essence of governance and government, and it is they that have entrusted their mandate to us. And what we did, ab initio, is to have a vision that truly reflects the wishes, the demands, and the needs of our people.
I can assure you one thing: in Kaduna State, there is nothing called innovation. In Kaduna State, people, delegates, and everyone is willing and able and ready for a free and fair primary election.
Other aspirants wade into some political issues concerning the APC that should get the attention of the party leadership.
What Governor of Central Bank is doing will break down this country. It makes us look like a banana republic. He has no business with politics at this point. So these are the points I'm trying to make, not because I'm favoring any candidate, but I do think that Nigeria must be respected within the Committee of Nations.
PDP may have been in government for some time in Abia, but they've not done well, and they know that their time is up. It's not a PDP state. It's going to be a PC state.
In the coming days, the All Progressives Congress will be screening the aspirants and make public those who will be representing the party in various categories of elective positions. Dili Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
The 96th National Executive Council meeting of the People's Democratic Party is currently ongoing at the National Secretariat of the party in Abuja, the nation's capital. In attendance are members of the National Working Committee of the party, led by its chairman, Senator Iyorchia Ayu, former Senate President David Mark, chairman of the PDP Governors Forum, Aminu Tambuwal, presidential aspirants Bukola Saraki, members of the BOT, Governor Seyi Makinde, amongst others. Senator Ayu briefed members of NEC about the party's preparations for the presidential primaries, where he assures of delivering a credible primary come May 28th and 29th. Tonight's meeting, which follows an earlier National Caucus meeting, has now gone into a closed doors session. Still ahead on the news at 10, 6 soldiers and a policeman killed in Taraba State. That's from Abuja. Plus, Nigeria GDP improves further in the third and fourth quarters of 2021, according to latest reports from the National Bureau of Statistics. We are Business News. Do join us again. Welcome back to the News at 10. I'm going to toss it over now to Linda in Abuja for more on the News at 10. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Amarachi. No fewer than 6 soldiers and a police officer have been reported killed in an ambush by a militia group in Tati community, Takum local government area of Taraba State. The chairman of Takum Local Council, Shiban Chikari, who confirms the incident to Channels Television, says a convoy of the commanding officer, 93 Battalion Takum, later engaged the terrorists, and in the process, 6 soldiers were killed and their bodies recovered while the commanding officer was abducted. Although the army is yet to make a statement, the Taraba State Police Commissioner, Abimbola Shokoya, confirms the killing of his colleague.
There was an invasion of 30 by suspected militias, and in the course of this, houses were razed down and a lot of persons killed. We have not known the actual number of those that lost their lives in the course of that very incident for now. However, we should state that we lost one of our men, one of our PMF personnel, in the course of this very incident. He was attached to 67 PMF Takum, and this incident occurred in that village, 30, under Takum local government area of Taraba State. The situation at the moment at 30 is that we have sent reinforcement to that very place. There's a joint operation that is going on right now. That is the military and other security agencies. So our men are there, and normalcy is already being restored there. At Takum, generally the local government area, you will find out that there is relative peace for now. Yes, there was also an explosion at about 20-30 hours of the same 10th of May 2022. In the course of that, at the 6th Brigade headquarters here in Jalingo, and men, that is the EOD team, who are men that are highly calibrated and trained for that purpose. They are already on top of the situation, and they will update us with their findings.
To education, the Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics has directed its members nationwide to withdraw their services for 2 weeks with effect from Monday, May 16. The president of the union, Mr. Anderson Uzebe, gave the directive at a news conference after an emergency meeting of the National Executive Council in Abuja. The lecturers say the warning strike has become their last resort after several efforts to amicably resolve their impasse bordering on sundry issues with the government failed. Nasarawa State has held its maiden investment summit in Lafia, the state capital. The two-day event played host to former president of Ghana, Mr. John Mahama, the vice president, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, and the chairman of Aliko Dangote Group as keynote speakers. The summit, which is part of the state government's economic development strategy, features 10 investment projects in agriculture, mining, real estate, and technology.
The APC, His Excellency Most Distinguished.
The inaugural Nasarawa Investment Summit with the theme Diamond in the Rough, the making of a new investment frontier commences.
The Nasarawa Investment Summit, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen,
the Managing Director of Nasarawa State Investment Development Agency, NASIDA, Mr. Ibrahim Abdullahi, summarizes the state government's efforts towards practicable economic transformation.
States across the country to capitalize on their shared strengths for growth and development.
Various speakers gave their contribution to the government's economic development strategy, but one high point was that of the chief judge of the state.
We decided to create within the structures of magistrate courts in all the 13 local government areas of Nasarawa State.
Her speech is closely followed by the launch of the handbook, as she is joined by the Special Assistant to the President on Ease of Doing Business, Dr. Jumoke Uduwole, as well as the host, Governor Abdullahi Sule. Further in the program, speaking as a successful investor in multiple sectors, Mr. Aliko Dangote shares some tips.
There must be a committed and focused leadership with a clear vision for the people and an effective strategy for execution.
The one steering the ship, Engineer Abdullahi Sule, accepts the tips, appreciates the impressive turnout, and maximizes the audience by sharing his vision.
We have been very deliberate in stimulating our economy, building human capacities, creating wealth, and generating employment in the state. We have also enacted and signed into law the Nasarawa Public Procurement Law towards ensuring transparency, accountability, and prudent management of public resources.
The guest speaker, Mr. John Mahama, shares his lessons from Ghana's development.
It is important for nations of federal states like yours to have a carefully drawn-up infrastructure investment plan. This must be drawn after intensive consultation to capture the felt needs of your people.
The Vice President
Hours into the events, the Vice President takes time out his busy schedule to attend it, and his speech is familiar as investment and issues around ease of doing business has become his forte.
The Federal Executive Council approved the variation of a contract for the construction of a 2x6 OMVA 132/23 substation at Lafia with 2x132 base extension at Akwanga.
Speech is done, it's off to the deal room, which is equipped with 10 investment projects ready to be signed. The first day of the summit ends with 3 panels with conversations on growth, opportunity and accountability, as the panelists postulate ideas on how to realize the potentials in Nasarawa State, which has been described as a diamond in the rough.
And be able to deploy it for projects.
Customers of Techno products around Alaba International Market can now get all products at reduced price. This is part of the incentives to customers to commemorate the grand opening of a Techno Experience store and car care service center. 2 other centers are launched simultaneously.
This may seem like a talent show, but it is not. It's part of the event for the grand opening of the Techno Experience store and car care service center at Alaba International Market in Lagos. Straight to business, the leadership of the company in the country cut the tape, signifying the official launch of the center. While this is going on here, it is also in 2 other centers across the state.
We want to be able to deploy a number of these retail shops, across the country so that our customers can see, feel, and also interact with the innovative products that we're introducing into the Nigerian market in a more conducive, retail environment.
Beyond sales, provision is also made for repairs and more.
We're also opening car care service center, which is the authorized service center for Techno, Nigeria. At car care, they can bring their defective products to be attended to. They can also swap their old phones, and they can get all sorts of mobile phone services, smartphone services from our car care service center as well.
The company is promising specialized customer experience at these and other centers.
The idea behind this opening, first of all, is for people to experience the Techno brand, to have more experience about the Techno brand. So right now, it's not just about mobile phones, it's about mobile phones, accessories and other gadgets, high-quality gadgets in all of the centers. And expect more to come from Techno. We stop at nothing.
What they should be looking at is the good customer service. They should be looking at the quality of device getting from our centers that is around them.
Customers have started taking advantage of the centers, with some highlighting what excites them about Techno products.
They have good background in the cameras, and they have good storage, they have lifeline of the battery. That is why I love Techno.
As part of a grand opening ceremony, customers are assured of getting every product bought here at promo price, alongside other incentives, with plans to get the centers to other parts of the country in days ahead.
That's all from Abuja. Now to Anne for business news.
Hello and welcome to Business News. Let's begin with Nigeria's gross domestic product, which improved further in the 3rd and the 4th quarters of last year. And that's according to the latest report coming from the National Bureau of Statistics. The data released by the NBS shows that the country's GDP rose by 4.03% in the 3rd quarter and 3.98% year-on-year in the final 3 months of 2021. Before now, Nigeria's GDP recorded a negative annual growth rate of 1.92% for 2020 compared to 2.27% in 2019, and that's after contracting in the 2nd and 3rd quarter of 2020. However, the country came out of recession after positive growth rates were recorded in the 4th quarter of 2020 as well as the 4th quarter of 2021. The Senate today passed a bill to repeal and reenact the Customs and Excise Management Act, SEMA, of 2004, following the consideration of a report by the committee. In his presentation, the chairman of the Senate Committee on Customs, Excise and Tariffs, Francis Ali-Mekena, said the bill seeks to assist the administration of Nigeria Customs Service in driving the growth of the economy and facilitating trade. Customs and Excise Management Act is the principal legislation guiding the administration of customs and excise, as well as making provisions regulating the importation and exportation of goods in the country. We'll head to the market now, where it is back to winning ways again, as MTN Nigeria and 35 other gainers lifted the performance indicator up by some numbers. Will Ibong has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Mind-blowing performance today and a remarkable rebound for the NGX as the all-share index and the market cap crossed another milestone. You can tell the mood of the market simply by the way it traded today, 555 billion naira, which pushed the market cap past the 28 trillion naira mark, is proof of investors' positive sentiments. The all-share index up by 1.99%, also crossed the 52,000 points and inching closer to 53,000, and the activity chart is sitting pretty there. Also, it was smooth sailing for the sector indexes as key counters closed in positive territory. Consumer goods saw the biggest gains, up by 1.48%, despite the fact that Boa Foods got hammered today. The stock lost 6 naira 30 kobo to close at 56 naira 70 kobo, down from its previous close of 63 naira. Meanwhile, Komu Oil is on a rampage. 18 naira was added to its share price to close at 205 naira 70 kobo. With the kind of rally the market has been recording, let's hope we don't get a staggering market cap destruction next. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Willie Bung. Back to you.
Those great numbers will end business news for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Amarachi.
Thanks a lot, Anne. A Reverend Father of the Catholic Church was kidnapped by bandits 2 months ago. Joseph Akete Bako has died in the custody of his abductors. The victim reportedly spent 8 weeks in captivity before his death. The deceased priest was kidnapped on March 8, 2022 by bandits at his pastoral residence of St. John's Catholic Church, Kudenda in Chikun local government area. Although the police authorities are yet to confirm the incident, the Chancellor of Catholic Archdiocese of Kaduna, Reverend Father Christian Okewu Emmanuel, confirmed the story. According to the Chancellor, Father Bako was ill before his abduction, and the abductors did not allow him to go with his drugs for proper medication. When the news at 10 returns, Ukrainian forces have recaptured towns and cities around Kharkiv as British Prime Minister Boris Johnson today signed security declarations with Sweden and Finland. To join us again. Welcome back. Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister Irina Vereshchuk has suggested the seriously injured defenders of the Azovstal steel plant in the city of Mariupol could be swapped with Russian prisoners of war. Making the suggestion on Telegram, Vereshchuk said there is no agreement yet and negotiations are continuing. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces have recaptured towns and cities around Kharkiv as British Prime Minister Boris Johnson signed security declarations with Sweden and Finland today. Simon Pusey has more.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Ukraine says its forces have recaptured villages from Russian troops north and northeast of Kharkiv, pushing them back towards the border. Footage released from the Ukrainian armed forces purportedly shows a Russian tank being destroyed in the Kharkiv region. Ukraine's president said those he called the occupiers were gradually being pushed out of the area. Here, footage of Ukrainian troops re-entering villages around the city. The ongoing offensive could signal a shift in the war's momentum and jeopardize Russia's main advance further south. The UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has signed a security declaration with Sweden and pledged UK support should Sweden or Finland come under attack.
And in times of crisis,
Swedish leader Magdalena Andersson said if either country should come under attack, the UK and Sweden will assist each other in a variety of ways. Boris Johnson said it is a sad irony that EU leaders are being forced to discuss the best way to fortify shared defences on the anniversary of the end of World War II. Both Sweden and Finland say they are considering joining NATO, although Russia said they would respond if this were to happen. The Qatar-based news channel Al Jazeera says Israel was behind the gunfire in the occupied West Bank that killed their journalist and reporter Shireen Abu Akleh. These were the moments after the shooting. Here, Shireen Abu Akleh is filmed being rushed to hospital. Colleagues mourned her death in a parade in the streets soon after. Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said that according to information Israel had gathered so far, it appears likely that armed Palestinians were responsible for the death of the journalist. However, a journalist who was injured in the shootings says Israel was responsible. We, a group of journalists, were there wearing our full press uniform in addition to the helmets with the word press written in large letters. We were obvious. And Al Jazeera's managing editor agrees.
We see this as intentional targeting of Al Jazeera and its journalists to prevent them from conducting their duties and reporting to the world what's happening on the ground. We consider this done by the Israeli forces. We think that they have the responsibility of what happened.
Shanghai officials have confirmed they will further restrict access to food and hospitals in some parts of the city, the most severe phase of its extended lockdown yet. Commercial food and deliveries are not allowed, and access to hospitals for all but emergencies must first be approved. Neighbours of COVID-19 cases and others living close by are also being forced into government quarantine facilities. Shanghai is now in its 7th week of citywide restrictions. Sri Lanka witnessed a second night of arson attacks with properties damaged in the town of Negombo near the capital Colombo. A mob torched a luxury holiday resort owned by the son of the former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. More than 200 are believed to have been injured in the clashes. A passenger on board a United Airlines flight has captured the moment when the plane made an emergency landing in the Peruvian capital of Lima. The passenger filmed sparks flying from the engine as it made its emergency descent. The 855 was travelling to Houston from Lima when it developed technical problems. In a statement, United Airlines said its maintenance team would investigate what caused the technical problem. Incredible video footage has captured the moment a beach house in North Carolina's coast crumbled into the ocean due to high tides and strong winds. 2 properties were swept away by the waves, according to the US National Park Service officials, warning that other homes were also at risk. The unoccupied homes were located along Ocean Drive in the Outer Banks community. The Park Service confirmed that it has closed off the areas around the houses. And Apple has announced it is discontinuing its music player, the iPod Touch, bringing to end a device widely praised for revolutionising how people listen to music.
What they are.
When the first iPod was launched in 2001, it could store 1,000 tracks, and the device was revolutionary in many other ways. Today, there are more than 90 million songs on Apple's streaming service. There have been various iPod models over the years, but the iPod Touch, which was released in 2007, is the last model to be discontinued. Apple says it will remain available to buy while stocks last. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
And the main news again. President Muhammadu Buhari today directed all Federal Executive Council members seeking elective office in 2023 to resign on or before Monday, May 16, 2022, exempting only the Vice President, Professor Yomi Osinbajo. Meanwhile, the Minister of State for Education, Emeka Nwajuoba's resignation was announced on the floor of the Federal Executive Council. Mr. Nwajuoba is believed to have resigned about 2 weeks ago. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubadi. Good night.